You ever notice how some people will only love you as long as you fit the version of you that keeps them comfortable? The moment you start to grow, to think differently, to demand peace, they start to pull back. They don't clap for you anymore. They don't check on you the same way. And suddenly, the same people who once told you they were proud of you now act like your progress is a problem. But listen, growth exposes what comfort hides. When you begin to focus on yourself, it shakes the foundation of people who only benefited from your distractions. See, not everyone celebrates your peace because your peace reminds them of the chaos they still live in. Not everyone can handle your healing because your healing forces them to face their own brokenness. That's why, sometimes, when you start choosing yourself, you'll lose people you never thought you'd lose. You'll look around and realize that the crowd got smaller, but your clarity got stronger. And in that moment, you start to understand that losing people doesn't always mean you're losing. Sometimes it means you're finally aligning. You've spent so much of your life trying to prove you were worth staying for. You tried to love people through their pain, through their doubt, through their inconsistency, but you can't make someone ready for the version of you they prayed for but never prepared to handle. You can't keep pouring from an empty spirit, trying to fix people who refuse to grow. That's not love, that's self-sabotage disguised as loyalty, and if you're not careful, you'll confuse their need for you with genuine connection. Some people don't love you. They love what you do for them. They love your energy, your encouragement, your light, but not your evolution. And when you finally start to protect your energy, they'll call you distant. When you start saying no, they'll call you selfish, but don't you dare apologize for prioritizing peace. Don't you dare shrink just because someone's offended by your boundaries. You fought too hard to get here. You cried too long to be misunderstood by people who were never meant to understand your calling. You can't take everyone with you to the next level because not everyone's built for that altitude. Some people can't breathe where you're going. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying. You stop carrying people who refuse to walk. You stop carrying conversations that drain you. You stop carrying expectations that keep you small. Because when you carry too much, you can't climb. You can't elevate when you're overloaded with old attachments. Sometimes, what's blocking your blessing isn't the enemy, it's your inability to release what's already expired. You've got to learn how to close some doors quietly. You don't need to announce it. You don't need to explain it. You just need to walk away with grace, because silence is louder than any argument you could ever have. Let them talk. Let them assume. Let them misunderstand. You don't owe anyone a performance to prove you've healed. Real peace doesn't beg to be understood, it just exists. You can love people from a distance. You can forgive without reconnecting. You can wish them well and still walk away. That's not pride, that's maturity. That's wisdom. You're not leaving because you hate them. You're leaving because you finally love yourself enough to stop tolerating what steals your joy. There's a freedom that comes when you stop explaining your worth to people who only see it when they need something. There's power in realizing you don't have to chase what's already chosen to leave. You don't have to fight to be seen by those who are blind to your value. When you start focusing on yourself, you stop begging for love and start attracting what's meant for you. So hear me, don't let guilt pull you back into what God has already pulled you out of. Some people are attached to the old version of you because the new one no longer serves their comfort. Let them remember you how they want to, but keep becoming who you're meant to be. You owe it to yourself to grow, to heal, to live fully. The ones meant for your next season won't require you to dim your light to make them feel safe. They'll celebrate your shine, not compete with it. You have to make peace with the fact that not everyone gets a front row seat to your transformation. Some people were only supposed to be in the audience for a while. When their time is up, let them go, because you can't receive new blessings holding onto old attachments. You can't walk into your future still entertaining people who remind you of your past. This is your time to rise, to rebuild, to rediscover who you are without the noise, without the judgment, without the expectations. So take a breath, let it go. Focus on yourself, your healing, your peace, your purpose. Because the moment you start doing that, everything meant for you starts finding its way back. You ever wake up one day and realize that the very people you were fighting for never fought for you, that the same ones you kept protecting were the ones silently praying you'd stay stuck. It hits you differently when you finally see it. You start connecting the dots, the moments you felt drained but didn't know why, the conversations that left you confused, the support that only came when it benefited them. You start realizing it wasn't love you were losing, it was manipulation disguised as care. And that's when your freedom begins, when you stop chasing explanations and start embracing peace. See, there's something dangerous about constantly trying to prove your loyalty to people who already decided how little you mean to them. You can't save people who find comfort in your struggle. You can't keep pouring life into relationships that feed off your weakness. Some people don't want you healed, they want you dependent, because the moment you find peace, they lose control. The moment you find focus, they lose influence. That's why you have to stop giving people power over your emotions. Stop letting their silence steal your sleep. Stop letting their approval define your worth. You've got to reach a point where your peace matters more than their presence. It's not pride, it's protection. Protecting your heart doesn't make you cold. It makes you wise. It teaches you that not every open door deserves to be walked through. Not every voice deserves to be answered. Not every connection deserves your energy. Some people come into your life like blessings. Others come like lessons, and the quicker you learn to tell the difference, the easier it becomes to move forward. Because truth is, you can't heal in the same environment that broke you. You can't grow around people who only remind you of what you used to be. You've got to start asking yourself, what is this connection costing me? Is it costing my joy, my focus, my confidence, my faith? Because peace always has a price, and sometimes that price is distance. Sometimes that price is silence. You don't have to make a public announcement when you decide to walk away. You don't need to prove you're done. The real power is in peace, in choosing to no longer participate in your own exhaustion, in choosing to stop explaining to people who hear you but don't listen. When you start focusing on yourself, you start realizing how much time you've wasted trying to fix what was never broken asterisk you asterisk. You were just surrounded by people who couldn't see your value, so they tried to convince you that you were too much, too loud, too different. But what they called too much was actually your gift. What they called too confident was your strength. What they called changed was your growth. Never apologize for evolving. The same people who say you've changed were never planning to grow with you anyway. You've got to understand that isolation isn't punishment, it's preparation. Sometimes God separates you not to break you, but to build you. You've been so busy trying to hold on to everyone that you forgot who's been holding on to you. And maybe that's why your plans kept falling apart, because God wasn't trying to take from you. He was trying to free you. He saw what you couldn't. He heard what you didn't. And he loved you too much to let you stay connected to what was killing your purpose. There's a reason certain people walked out when they did. There's a reason certain relationships collapsed right before your breakthrough. Because not everyone can handle your next level. Some people were assigned to your struggle, not your success. They could love you when you were broken because your weakness made them feel strong. But now that you're healing, they can't handle the version of you that doesn't need their validation. And that's okay. Don't chase people who can't grow with you. Release them with love and keep walking. You owe it to yourself to heal in peace, not in performance. You don't have to prove you're over someone, just be over it. You don't have to post your growth, just grow. You don't have to explain your silence, just be still, because the ones meant for you will never need you to exhaust yourself to keep them. They'll meet you where you are and grow beside you. So breathe again, reclaim your space, reconnect with your vision. The best thing you can do for yourself is learn how to sit with your own company without craving validation from the ones who left. Because once you learn to enjoy your own peace, you'll never settle for chaos again. Once you learn to love your solitude, you'll stop chasing people who only offered you noise. This season is about you, your clarity, your healing, your purpose. You ever notice how the moment you decide to focus on yourself, distractions start showing up like never before? The phone starts ringing with people who ghosted you months ago. Old habits you thought you buried start creeping back in. Doubt whispers louder. Fear gets familiar again. It's almost as if the moment you decide to level up, life sends a test just to see if you're really serious about your peace. Because focusing on yourself isn't easy. It's a daily fight against everything that once felt comfortable but kept you stuck. See, focusing on yourself means saying no when you used to say yes just to keep the peace. It means walking away from conversations that drain your energy. It means realizing that not every battle deserves your presence. The more you grow, the quieter you become, not because you're weak, but because peace doesn't shout. Growth teaches you to protect your focus the way a lion guards its territory fiercely, intentionally, without apology. The truth is, focus feels lonely at first. You'll sit in silence wondering if you made the right decision. You'll miss the noise that used to fill the gaps in your day. But over time, that silence becomes sacred. That quiet becomes your classroom. You start hearing your own thoughts again, the ones that used to get drowned out by everyone else's opinions. You start realizing how powerful your peace really is. You begin to see that focusing on yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. Because you can't pour into anybody else if your own cup is empty. You've got to protect your space, protect your time, protect your mind, because everything around you is designed to steal your attention. The world thrives on distraction, endless scrolling, endless comparisons, endless noise. But purpose requires stillness. You can't hear direction in the middle of chaos. You've got to learn how to shut the door, shut the phone, shut the world out long enough to remind yourself who you are and why you started. Because sometimes the world will try to convince you that you're missing out, when in reality you're just being molded. You're not missing anything by stepping back. You're not losing anything by being selective. You're simply shifting from people who drain you to things that develop you. You're building discipline, learning patience, discovering your worth. And when you start focusing on yourself like that with intention, with purpose, with clarity, you'll see how much you were settling for. You'll see how many opportunities you overlooked trying to keep people who were never meant to go with you. There's a certain kind of strength that comes from being alone and not lonely. That's when you stop running from yourself and start embracing who you are. You start to understand that peace isn't the absence of problems, it's the presence of perspective. It's realizing that everything you lost wasn't punishment. It was preparation. That job that didn't work out. Preparation, that relationship that ended. Preparation. That season of silence where nobody called, nobody texted, and it felt like you were forgotten. Preparation. Because sometimes isolation is where God does his greatest work. You've got to trust that the process is doing more for you than the people ever could. The waiting, the separation, the pruning, it's all part of your becoming. But you can't see that when you're distracted trying to hold onto what's familiar. Growth requires focus. It requires you to walk away from the noise, even when it's coming from people you love. Because you can't hear your calling clearly when you're constantly listening to opinions that weren't meant to guide you. And don't be surprised when people start saying you've changed. That's what happens when you stop being accessible to chaos, when you stop entertaining small talk and start building something greater. When you stop explaining yourself and start executing your vision. The moment you start focusing on yourself, you become unrecognizable to those who were comfortable with your confusion. But don't take it personal. Your growth exposes what others refuse to face in themselves. You're not responsible for making everyone comfortable with your evolution. You're responsible for becoming everything you were created to be, because at the end of the day, no one can live your purpose for you. No one can fight your battles for you. No one can carry your calling but you. So stop waiting for validation from people who can't see your vision. Stop dimming your light to make others feel safe in their darkness. This is your season to focus, to build, to rise, and you can't do that halfway. So make the decision right now to choose focus over distraction, peace over people, pleasing, and purpose over pressure. Because once you taste real peace, once you experience the strength that comes from truly focusing on yourself, you'll never go back to settling for noise again. There's a certain moment in life when you start to realize that peace costs more than you expected. It costs you people, patterns, and places that once felt like home. You start to notice that the very things you thought you couldn't live without were the things quietly holding you back. And when that awareness hits you, it shakes your spirit. Because the truth is, peace will demand payment in full, and the currency is letting go. Letting go of control, letting go of outcomes, letting go of what you thought it was supposed to be, so you can finally receive what it's meant to be. You see, the cost of peace isn't comfortable. It'll pull you out of familiar circles, and it'll silence voices that once echoed daily in your life. Peace will make you question why you tolerated chaos for so long. You'll look back at the situations you used to call love and realize they were just distractions dressed up as companionship. You'll start to see how often you confused comfort with connection, and how many times you stayed somewhere because leaving felt too heavy. But the truth is, sometimes the heaviest thing you'll ever carry is what you refuse to release. We love to say we want peace, but peace isn't passive. Peace is bold. Peace is brave. It's looking at what you used to run to and saying, "Not this time." It's refusing to answer calls that only lead to confusion. It's saying no to drama that once made you feel important. It's learning to be okay with people not understanding your silence. Because when you start valuing your peace, you realize not every apology deserves a reunion, and not every goodbye deserves closure. Sometimes the closure is knowing it ended when it was supposed to. The cost of peace is high because peace requires boundaries, and boundaries expose who was only there for access. The moment you start saying, "I can't do this anymore," you'll see who respected your peace and who benefited from your chaos. And that's not something to grieve, that's something to thank God for. because anyone who truly loves you will protect your peace, not poison it. Sometimes you'll lose people who can't survive your healing. They were connected to your brokenness, not your wholeness. They were drawn to your need, not your growth. They liked you better when you were easy to manipulate, when you didn't ask questions, when you accepted crumbs and called it care. But once you wake up, once you start seeing yourself clearly, once you start walking like you know your worth, those same people will start calling you distant. And that's fine distance is where peace breathes. Let me tell you something. Peace doesn't beg. Peace doesn't chase. Peace doesn't argue. Peace sits in silence and knows that what's meant for you won't require you to lose yourself to keep it. The moment you start choosing peace, your spirit gets lighter. You stop being addicted to explanations. You stop needing to fix what's not your responsibility. You stop showing up for people who never meet you halfway, because you finally understand that peace is not a place, it's a decision. Every day you choose it. Every day you fight for it. Every day you protect it. And yes, peace will make you lonely at times. You'll have quiet nights where you question if walking away was the right thing. But then you'll notice something: your anxiety isn't as loud. Your thoughts don't race the way they used to. You can breathe again. That's the sound of peace settling in. That's the quiet confirmation that you made the right choice. Because sometimes peace whispers before it roars. You've got to stop expecting peace to come without pruning. Growth always comes with a little loss. You can't bring every branch with you into a new season. Some have to be cut for the tree to survive. And that's what peace does. It cuts off what no longer bears fruit. It trims the unnecessary. It reshapes your life so that what's left can grow stronger, healthier, purer. So if you find yourself alone right now, understand this. You're not being punished, you're being prepared. You're being reintroduced to yourself. You're learning what joy feels like without validation. You're learning how to love without begging. You're learning how to live without pretending. That's peace. That's power, and that's priceless. So stop trying to drag people into your peace who thrive in chaos. You can't heal in the same room that broke you. You can't find calm surrounded by noise that refuses to quiet down. Protect your peace like it's sacred, because it is. It's the foundation of your focus, your faith, your future. There's a point in life where you stop begging people to understand you. You stop trying to prove your worth. You stop shrinking yourself to fit into spaces that were never meant to hold you. Because one day you wake up and realize that peace feels better than attention, that solitude feels safer than pretending, and that being misunderstood is a small price to pay for being free. That's the moment when you shift from chasing validation to building value not in their eyes, but in your own. You ever notice how much energy it takes to keep explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you? You try to be gentle, you try to be kind, you try to be clear, and still they twist your words. They make you the villain in stories you didn't even write. But the truth is, some people don't want the real you. They want the version that benefits them. They don't want your boundaries, they want your availability. They don't want your truth, they want your silence. But once you start focusing on yourself, once you start walking in purpose, their manipulation stops working, because peace doesn't respond to pressure. When you start healing, you start seeing things differently. What used to trigger you now teaches you. What used to break you now builds you. You begin to understand that closure doesn't come from conversations, it comes from acceptance. You stop waiting for apologies that may never come. You stop chasing explanations that won't bring peace. You learn that peace isn't found in their words, it's found in your release. Because forgiveness isn't saying, it's okay. Forgiveness is saying, I'm moving on. It's the quiet decision that says, you no longer have power over my emotions. You've got to protect that peace with everything you've got. Protect your mind, because peace begins in your thoughts. Protect your heart, because peace lives where love is pure. Protect your focus, because peace thrives where purpose leads. Don't let people who live in chaos convince you that you're the problem just because you've chosen calm. When you stop reacting to everything, they'll call you distant. When you stop arguing, they'll say you've changed, and you know what? They're right, you have asterisk changed. You've learned that not every noise deserves a response, not every attack deserves a counter, not every opinion deserves space in your spirit. Peace isn't loud. It doesn't demand attention. It moves quietly, confidently, consistently. It's the smile that doesn't need validation, the calm that doesn't need approval, the stillness that doesn't need explanation. You get to that place by going through the fire, through betrayal, disappointment, heartbreak, and silence. You earn peace by surviving what tried to break you and refusing to become bitter in the process. That's growth. That's power. That's freedom. It's funny how life changes when you stop looking for peace in people and start finding it in yourself. You start walking differently. You stop being desperate for attention. You stop forcing conversations that don't flow. You stop watering connections that don't grow. You realize that the peace you've been praying for was never waiting in another person. It was waiting for you to stop running from yourself. And when that peace settles in, you start to see that some losses were really blessings. You stop mourning what left and start thanking God it did. You stop asking, why me? And start saying, thank you for showing me. Because sometimes the blessing isn't what you gained, it's what you lost that was blocking your peace. You've got to believe that not everyone is meant to understand your journey. Some people are meant to watch from afar. Some are meant to fade away quietly, and that's okay. You don't owe explanations to people who only listen to respond. You don't owe consistency to people who never cared to meet you halfway. You don't owe closure to situations that God already closed for you. When peace becomes your priority, you learn to stop knocking on doors that lead back to pain. So stop apologizing for protecting your peace. Stop feeling guilty for growing past people who never wanted you whole. Stop trying to make everyone comfortable with your calm. Peace doesn't need permission, it just needs practice. And every day you wake up, you have a choice to let the world control your emotions or to guard your spirit like it's sacred. Because it is. There comes a time in your life when you've got to stop fighting battles that don't belong to you. You've got to stop trying to fix people who are comfortable being broken. You've got to stop setting yourself on fire just to keep others warm. Because the truth is, you can't heal people who refuse to face their own pain. You can love them, you can pray for them, but you can't live their lessons for them. And when you finally understand that, you start to experience a new kind of freedom, the freedom that comes from choosing yourself without guilt. See, sometimes the hardest thing you'll ever do is walk away from what you still care about. Your heart will want to hold on, your memories will want to replay, but your spirit will whisper, let it go. Because love isn't supposed to drain you. It's not supposed to leave you questioning your worth or doubting your value. Real love should bring peace, not pain. It should make you better, not bitter. And when you start to focus on yourself, you begin to recognize the difference between being loved and being used. You ever notice how some people only show up when you're struggling? They like you better when you're in pieces because your brokenness makes them feel whole. But the moment you start to heal, the moment you start to find your confidence again, they pull away. Not because you changed for the worse, but because your growth made them uncomfortable. That's why you've got to be careful who you call friend, because not everyone clapping for you is happy for you. Some are just keeping up appearances, waiting for you to fall so they can say, "I knew it." But here's the thing: you don't owe anybody an explanation for your healing. You don't have to justify your peace. You don't need to convince anyone that you deserve better. You know what's funny? The same people who couldn't handle your boundaries will start calling you selfish. But the truth is, they were never used to you putting yourself first. They were comfortable with you being the giver, the fixer, the one who always said yes. But now you've learned the power of no. You've learned that protecting your energy isn't rejection, it's respect. It's saying, I can love you and still choose me. And choosing yourself doesn't mean you've given up on others. It means you've finally stopped giving up on you. You've carried people long enough. You've sacrificed your peace long enough. You've tolerated disrespect long enough. It's time to remember who you are. Because when you forget your value, you'll settle for attention instead of respect, presence instead of partnership, and noise instead of peace. But once you remember, once you truly see yourself again, everything changes. You start walking differently. You start talking differently. You start moving like you know you're chosen, not chasing. Letting go doesn't mean you stop loving. It means you love in a way that doesn't destroy you. It means you wish them well without waiting for them to understand. It means you stop reopening doors that God already locked for your protection. Because not everyone can go where you're headed. Some people were only part of your story to teach you how to recognize your worth. They were lessons wrapped in disappointment, and once you learn what you needed to learn, it's okay to close the book and move on. The moment you stop begging for what you deserve, you start attracting what's meant for you. The moment you stop chasing people, you start chasing purpose, and purpose will always take you places people never could. Because purpose doesn't drain you, it fills you. It makes you wake up with peace instead of pain, clarity instead of confusion. You've got to believe that what's ahead of you is better than what's behind you. That the people you're meant to walk with in this next season will match your energy, not take from it. You're not being punished for letting go. You're being positioned for better. And sometimes better doesn't announce itself with a loud arrival. It slips in quietly after you've cried your last tear and said, "I'm done." You might lose some people, but you'll find yourself. You might walk alone for a while, but you'll walk lighter. You might cry in private, but you'll smile in peace, because peace isn't found in holding on, it's found in surrendering. And surrendering doesn't mean you're weak. It means you trust that what's meant for you won't have to be forced. So stop trying to resuscitate what God already let die. Stop giving CPR to things that no longer breathe life into you. It's time to stop carrying what's killing your joy. Sometimes peace doesn't come after the storm. Sometimes peace asterisk is asterisk you walking away from it.